Grandpa gave me an apartment after my dad kicked me out so my stepmom's mom could stay in my room. But now Dad wants me back because Grandpa found out he was charging me rent and is now making him pay it back and also charging him for the apartment I'm in. Dad called it a quick family chat, but I could tell something was off the second I walked into the living room. The way Delia sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, the stiff smile on Dad's face, it wasn't just a chat. It was a setup. My name is Jeremy. I'm 21 years old. I live, or I guess, lived, in a 2-story house in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, with my dad, Roger, his wife Delia, and their daughter, Ava. I'm an architecture student, just finished my 3rd year. I also work part-time at a drafting firm downtown. Between school and work, I'm barely home. But apparently that wasn't enough. Jeremy, Dad started, glancing at Delia like she was his lawyer or something. We've been talking about some family logistics. Logistics, I repeated, trying to keep my tone neutral. Delia jumped in. With the new baby on the way, we've realized we'll need to make some changes. Space-wise. I blinked. You mean? We need your room, Dad said, all business. For the baby. I actually laughed. You need my room? You and Delia each have your own office. You could turn either of those into a nursery. Delia's smile stayed fixed, like she'd practiced it in a mirror. Roger needs a studio for client meetings. And I need mine to run my design business from home. So you're evicting me, I said. That's what this is. It's not like that, Dad said quickly. We're giving you 2 months. That's plenty of time to find something. Plenty of time? I shook my head, trying to stay calm. I'm a full-time student. I work 20 hours a week. And you know I've been paying rent since I was 18. It's a symbolic amount, Delia cut in. Still money, I snapped. I looked over at Ava, who'd been quiet on the stairs. She was 14, earbuds out, eyes flicking between us. She didn't say anything, but her face said it all. She hadn't known. She looked just as blindsided as me. I don't know what hurt more, that they were kicking me out, or that they tried to act like it was normal. Like it made sense. Like I was some temporary guest, not Roger's son. Not the kid who grew up in that house. That night, I texted my Aunt Jackie. She didn't reply. She called. You're joking, she said before I could even finish. Roger's kicking you out? For a nursery? Tell me this is a joke, Jeremy. I wish. She cursed under her breath. That's insane. You've been holding that house together while your dad plays midlife reboot with Delia the interior queen. And now they're shoving you out like an old couch. I don't know what to do, I admitted. I don't have savings. Not enough to get my own place. You're coming here, she said immediately. Pack a bag. I'll drive over tonight if I have to. I can't leave yet. They gave me a 2-month deadline. That's not mercy, Jeremy. That's PR. She didn't stop there. The next day, Grandpa Mort called. Mort Whitaker isn't just my grandfather. He's the guy who built half of the residential blocks in the city. A retired real estate mogul, sharp as a scalpel, still in dress shoes at 81. He rarely called. But now? I had him on the phone before noon. Jeremy, he said, his voice clipped and cold. Is it true? Yeah. They said they need the room. A long pause. I see. That was all he said. No outrage. No comforting words. Just, I see. But I knew that tone. I'd only heard it once before, when Mort found out my dad blew through a trust fund check in '07. It was the sound of the ground shifting. By Friday, Mort showed up on the porch with Aunt Jackie. Delia opened the door. She actually smiled and said, Mort, what a surprise. Roger home? Mort asked, walking right past her like she was a lamp. I stayed upstairs. I didn't need to hear what was said in that office. But I did hear the door slam an hour later. Later that night, Mort knocked on my door. Jeremy, he said, stepping inside. I understand you've been given notice. I nodded. Pretty much. Well, I don't agree with that decision, he said, looking around my tiny room. I think it's shameful. I swallowed hard, because I wasn't used to anyone defending me in that house. Not like that. Which is why I'm offering you 3 options, Mort continued, matter of fact. You can stay here, rent-free. You can move in with me, or with Jackie. Or, if you prefer independence, I have 3 vacant units. You pick one. I'll handle the costs. It was like the air got knocked out of the room. I didn't even know how to respond. Thank you, I managed. That's a lot. I don't want to take advantage. Jeremy, Mort said, leveling his gaze. This isn't charity. This is me correcting a mistake. I nodded. But inside, something was breaking loose. I wasn't sure if it was relief or grief or both. I'll think about it, I said. Do that, he said. But don't wait too long. That house won't get any kinder. He was right. Over the next week, Roger and Delia acted like nothing happened. But the warmth was gone. They were polite. Civil, cold. It was like I'd already left. And Ava, she noticed. One night she came into my room, arms crossed, that middle school defiance in full force. Why's everyone acting weird? I shrugged. Because I'm moving out, I guess. That's dumb, she said. You didn't do anything. Nope, I said. Except exist. She frowned. Well, it's dumb. I'm gonna miss you. Yeah, I said, blinking fast. I'll miss you too. Mort didn't waste time. The morning after our talk, he called my dad and told him they'd be having a direct conversation. I don't know what was said behind that office door. Only that Mort's tone was deadly calm when he came in, and my dad looked like he'd aged 10 years when he came out. They didn't tell me the details. But that night, while Delia was putting Ava to bed, Dad knocked on my door like he was asking permission to enter his own house. Got a minute? He asked, like we were coworkers instead of blood. Sure, I said, setting down my laptop. He came in, stood awkwardly, then finally sat in my desk chair. Your grandfather had some things to say, and he's right. We could have handled this differently. That was as close to an apology as I was going to get. I waited, arms crossed, until he cleared his throat again. You don't have to move out if you don't want to, he said. That caught me off guard. Wait, what? Mort's offered to support you, Dad continued. Said you can live here rent-free, or with him, or at one of his properties. Whatever you choose. I narrowed my eyes. And what's the catch? No catch, he said, but the tightness in his jaw gave him away. He just wants you taken care of. Said we were short-sighted in how we approach things. That wasn't the word Mort probably used, but fine. Later that night, Mort called me from his townhouse. Jeremy, he said, I don't want you making decisions from a place of anger. So think carefully. You're welcome here, or with Jackie. But if you want space of your own, I've got a fully renovated unit near campus. Mort, I said, this is a lot. It's overdue, he said. I sat with it for a while. The offer, the power shift, the idea of having a choice, finally. And then I surprised myself. I think I'll stay here, I said. At least for now. You sure, he asked. Yeah, I don't want to feel like I ran away. He paused, then said, that's fine. But if it gets worse, you call me. The next few days were tense. The air in the house turned cold, like everyone was holding their breath. Delia stopped making dinner for all of us. Dad stopped knocking before entering rooms. I felt like a guest in my own home, even with Mort's backing. And the symbolic rent I'd always paid? Suddenly, it mattered. I overheard Dad telling Delia, if he's staying rent-free, we're the ones losing out. Delia didn't argue. I started eating meals in my room. Stopped using the washer during the day. I didn't want to be seen. Didn't want to be talked about like I was some lazy freeloader. The only person who treated me the same was Ava. One night she came into my room while I was sketching out a design for class. You okay? She asked, sitting on the floor and stealing one of my snacks like she always did. I didn't answer at first. Then I looked at her. Do I seem out of place to you? She frowned. No. What? Because that's how I feel, I said quietly. Like I'm not really part of this family anymore. She looked down, picking at the wrapper of the granola bar. They're being weird, she said finally. You didn't do anything wrong. I know, I said. But that doesn't matter much here, does it? She didn't argue. Just sat there with me for a while, in silence. That weekend, Delia started leaving design books on the kitchen counter, baby room paint swatches, color schemes, crib ideas. My room was never mentioned, but it didn't need to be. They were sending a message. I was still in the way. And for all Mort's help, all his backing, it was becoming clear. I could stay, sure, but it would never feel like home again. By Monday, I knew. I wasn't choosing between options anymore. I was choosing peace. I called Mort that Tuesday evening. It had been 8 days since the family logistics talk. 7 since Mort made his offer. 3 since Delia stopped making enough dinner for a third plate. I didn't even get through the whole sentence. I think I'm ready to, I started. Mort cut me off. Good. I already started prepping the unit. I'll have someone from my team help with the move this weekend. Or sooner if you prefer. I was going to say I could handle it, I mumbled. Jeremy, he said, I'm 81, not blind. You've been handling enough. He showed up Friday with a guy named Vince in a black SUV. By Saturday morning, my boxes were stacked by the door. Delia stood in the kitchen, nursing a mug of tea, watching me silently like she wanted to say something but couldn't decide which mask to wear, concerned stepmom or polite landlord. She settled on neither. You have everything? She asked, not looking me in the eye. Yeah, Dad helped carry out one box. Just one. Then disappeared back into his office without a word. Ava came down the stairs last minute, clutching a pack of peanut M&Ms, my favorite. She pressed it into my hand. Looked like she wanted to cry, but didn't. I'll text you, she said. You better, I said, half smiling. Or I'm sending Mort to raid your Netflix account. She rolled her eyes and gave me a quick, fierce hug. That was the only goodbye that meant something. Mort's apartment, well, technically mine now, was a second-floor unit in a converted brick building about 15 minutes from campus. Warm-toned hardwood, high ceilings, fully stocked kitchen. He'd had it cleaned and staged like it was going on the market. There was even a small plant on the window ledge. This is too much, I said, dropping my backpack by the door. You haven't seen the fridge yet, Mort replied, smirking. Jackie stocked it. She insisted on oat milk. I don't know why. He handed me an envelope before he left. Thick, heavy. Inside was a check for $15,000. What is this? Startup money, he said. For rent. Groceries. A microwave. I don't care what you spend it on. Mort, I can't, You already did, he said, stepping toward the door. That's every penny you paid your father since you turned 18. I kept track. I stood there, stunned. You kept track. Of course I did, he said. Roger didn't. Someone had to. And then he was gone. I didn't cry. Not then. But I stood in that apartment for a long time, surrounded by boxes and silence, trying to remember what it felt like to not walk on eggshells. Trying to believe this was real. Within a week, I was settling into something like a rhythm. I'd wake up to the sunlight through real curtains, not the old blinds in my childhood room. I'd make eggs without worrying about who was watching. I started studying in the living room, leaving my sketchbooks out, music on. I worked. I cooked. I slept. For the first time, I breathed. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was clean. It was mine. Ava started texting me again after 2 days. Just memes at first. Then questions. Did you watch that doc I told you about? Then real conversations. We started FaceTiming on Friday nights. Sometimes she'd call while hiding in her closet just to rant about her mom's latest aesthetic baby room obsession. She bought 3 different types of wallpaper, Ava said one night. None of them match. Sounds expensive. It is, she said. Also ugly. I laughed. We didn't talk about me moving out. Not directly. But we both knew what it meant to have a conversation where no one was pretending. When Delia gave birth in early June, I sent flowers to the hospital. I also showed up. Mort drove us. Ava had asked me to come. She said it would mean a lot. The hospital room was warm, sterile. Delia held the baby, pink and squishy. Dad hovered nearby, looking tired but proud. Ava sat by the window, waving when I walked in. Hi, Delia said, voice strained. Hey, I said. Congrats. The baby's name was Theodore. Teddy. He was cute, I guess. I didn't know what to say to a baby. The visit lasted 20 minutes. Delia asked if I wanted to hold him. I said yes. It felt awkward, but not terrible. Dad stood beside me, hand on my shoulder, and for a second, I thought maybe he was going to say something meaningful. Instead, he said, he's heavier than he looks, huh? I nodded. That was the whole exchange. We took a picture, Dad, Delia, Ava, me, and Teddy. Everyone smiling. Even me. But it felt fake. Like a brochure for a family I didn't work for anymore. In the elevator down, Mort said. Well, that was weird. I didn't disagree. But as we stepped into the parking lot, Ava slid her hand into mine briefly, like we were kids again crossing the street. I'm glad you came, she whispered. Me too, I said. And for that moment, I meant it. It started with a plate of lasagna and my Aunt Jackie's frustration boiling over. I was at her house the following Saturday, sitting at her kitchen table with half a Coke and zero expectations. I'd just come from the apartment after a long day drafting and was ready to talk about anything but my dad. But Jackie had other plans. I still can't believe Roger had the audacity, she said, stabbing her salad like it owed her money. Throwing you out, like he doesn't owe half his life to Mort. I paused, fork midair. Wait, what does that mean? She looked up, her eyes wide like she hadn't meant to say that part out loud. Then she waved her hand like it didn't matter. Just. Mort's been helping them for years. How do you mean helping? She set down her fork slowly. You really don't know? No, I said, suddenly alert. I don't know anything. She leaned back in her chair. Jeremy, your grandfather owns the house your dad lives in. I blinked. Wait, what? I thought Dad bought it years ago. Nope, Jackie said. Mort bought that house back in 2006, just before the market tanked. Your dad's name is on the mailbox, but the deed's in Mort's trust. Always has been. My stomach dropped a little. So, Dad's basically renting? Living rent-free, actually. Mort paid the taxes. Covered a lot more than that over the years, too. That fancy kitchen remodel they bragged about? Mort wrote the check. Said it was for Ava. I felt like someone had hit me in the chest. All this time, I said slowly, they let me believe Dad owned the house. Jackie nodded. He wanted you to believe that. Said it was about setting an example. But really, it was pride. Roger's always had a hard time admitting he needs help. I sat back, trying to process it. What about the money I gave them? The rent I paid? She hesitated. Mort asked about that. After you moved out. I turned toward her. Asked what? He went through Roger's bank statements. Found every payment you made. Totaled it up. I already knew what was coming. 15,000. Jackie nodded. He gave it all back to you. That check? It wasn't a gift. It was restitution. I sat there, stunned. So, Dad charged me rent for 3 years in a house he didn't even own, I said. A house he didn't pay taxes on, didn't pay the mortgage on, didn't even pay utilities half the time. He pocketed every dollar, Jackie said, not even trying to soften it. Told Mort you were helping out, but he never said how much you were actually giving. I felt sick. Like I'd been the mark in some long-running con, except the con artist was my father. And now? I asked. Now that Mort knows? Now he's charging Roger rent, she said, eyes hard. Effective immediately. And he's demanding full repayment of every dollar you ever gave him. I laughed once. It came out sharp and bitter. No wonder they're mad at me. I cost them their free ride. Jackie reached over and squeezed my hand. You didn't cost them anything. They chose this. But I wasn't so sure. Later that night, lying on my mattress in the quiet of my new apartment, it hit me in pieces. The cold dinners. The sudden eviction. The way Delia and Dad acted like there were no other options. It had never been about space. They didn't need my room. They needed me gone before the truth caught up. Because if Mort hadn't stepped in, I'd still be paying rent. Still living in that house thinking I was helping. Still in the dark about the fact that I'd been subsidizing two adults with more square footage than they deserved and less integrity than I'd ever realized. I turned off the light and stared at the ceiling. My father didn't just push me out for convenience. He pushed me out to protect a lie. The first time I went back to the house after moving out, Ava opened the door before I even knocked. She looked relieved to see me. You didn't bail, she said. I said I'd come, I told her. And I brought pizza. We sat in the den, me, Ava, and a pepperoni from her favorite place near my apartment. Roger was upstairs with the baby. Delia popped in to say hello, then disappeared back into the kitchen, claiming she was just finishing something. I'd been back a few times before this, for the hospital visit, for Mort's check-ins, but this was different. Casual. Just me and Ava watching bad TV and pretending things were normal. So how's it feel? She asked, chewing. Living alone. Weird, I said. Quiet. Peaceful. She snorted. Bet no one's stealing your snacks. Nope. But I kind of miss yelling at you for it. That made her smile. A little later, Roger came down, holding baby Teddy against his shoulder like he wasn't sure what to do with him. I stood up instinctively. Hey, I said. How's he doing? He's a screamer, Dad muttered. Didn't sleep last night. Teddy blinked up at me like he was about to start wailing. I made a face, and to everyone's shock, he giggled. Roger raised an eyebrow. Huh, guess you've got the touch. I shrugged. Must be beginner's luck. He didn't say anything for a second. Just watched me with a weird, unreadable expression. Then he nodded once and went back upstairs. It was strange, cordial, but stiff. Like we were coworkers who'd once been family. A couple weeks later, Ava texted me asking if she could sleep over at my place. Mom said yes. She even helped pack. That surprised me. But I said yes without hesitation. The night she came over, we ate frozen burritos and watched dumb movies until past midnight. She fell asleep on the pull-out couch, curled up in an old hoodie of mine. It felt like a glimpse of something steady, like the start of a new normal. After that, it became a routine. Every other weekend, sometimes more. She'd come over, we'd cook or walk to the bodega, and she'd tell me stories about school and how Delia now obsessively organized baby socks by vibe. I was dropping Ava off one Sunday afternoon when Delia met us at the door. She looked tired, really tired, like someone who'd been running a marathon on 2 hours of sleep and cheap coffee. Thanks for having her, she said, and then, without warning, she stepped forward and hugged me. Tight. I froze. Then I patted her shoulder awkwardly. Oh yeah? Of course. When she pulled away, her eyes were a little glassy. I'm glad you're doing okay. Mort said the apartment looks nice. It's great, I said. I'm lucky. She shook her head. No, you're just finally getting what you deserve. That caught me off guard. But before I could say anything, she went back inside, calling Ava in behind her. I stood there for a long moment, keys in hand, staring at the closed door. I wasn't sure what had changed. Maybe it was the baby. Maybe Mort had said something that landed harder than usual. Maybe she'd finally started seeing Roger the way I had all along. Whatever it was, the tension had shifted. The coldness was still there, but it was cracking. Not gone, but different. The next few visits were easier. Ava came and went like it was routine. Delia always said thank you when I dropped her off. Roger stayed in the background. And Lorraine, Delia's mom, started showing up more and more. The first time I saw her, I recognized her from family photos. Stern mouth, perfect curls, eyes like judgment and high heels. She didn't say hello when I walked in. Just looked me up and down like she was scanning for imperfections. She hovered the entire visit. Every time I got up, she tracked me like I might steal the silverware. She's always like that, Ava whispered later. She even watches me brush my teeth. But then, one night, after I'd walked Ava back to the house, Delia came out with a bag of Ava's laundry. She wants to start leaving clothes at your place, she said, handing it to me. Makes packing easier. I nodded. Yeah, that's fine. She hesitated, then added, thank you. for taking care of her, for being steady. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded again. When I got back to the apartment, Ava texted me. Mom's not perfect, but she's trying. Thought you should know. And for the first time since moving out, I let myself believe something real was shifting. Not fast, not dramatic, but shifting. We weren't the family we used to be. Maybe we never were. But something new was forming. Quieter, slower, maybe even better. It was Mort who called the meeting. I got the text on a Tuesday. Family dinner. My place. No excuses. I didn't ask who was invited. I knew. By the time I arrived that Friday night, the dining room was already full. Mort sat at the head of the table, composed and quiet. Jackie was to his left, arms crossed, mouth tight. Delia and Roger sat across from her, hands folded like they were in court. Ava was next to me, fidgeting with a cloth napkin. The baby was at home with a sitter. Lorraine wasn't invited. Mort didn't stand. He just tapped the stem of his wine glass once. Well, he said, we have some things to clear up. The room tensed immediately. You could feel it, the collective inhale of people bracing for impact. I'll go first, Roger said, almost too quickly. I think I owe everyone here an explanation. Mort didn't stop him. Neither did anyone else. Roger cleared his throat. He looked tired, not in the normal, new baby way, but deeper, like guilt had been slowly gnawing at him. I didn't ask Jeremy to leave for space, he began. That's just what we said. Delia looked sideways at him, like she hadn't heard that part either. I told him we needed the room for the baby, but the truth is, I wanted him out before things got worse. Before Mort started asking questions. About the house. About the money. Jackie let out a low breath through her nose. Mort said nothing. Roger kept going. I've made a lot of bad choices financially. I was behind on the property taxes, 2 years actually. I let Jeremy keep paying rent even though Mort was covering everything already. I used that money to pay off a line of credit Delia didn't even know I had. Delia's lips parted, but no words came out. Roger looked at her, eyes glossy. I'm sorry. She just stared at him. And it wasn't just the money, he added. It was my pride. I couldn't stand that Mort knew I was failing. So I listened to other people. He hesitated. Everyone knew who he meant. Lorraine? Mort asked, his voice sharp. Roger nodded. She told me I needed to draw the line with Jeremy. Said it was time he paid real rent or moved on. That I was being too soft. Ava's jaw clenched. She told me I'd lose control of the household if I kept letting him live like a prince. And I believed her. No, Delia said suddenly, her voice cracking. No, you told me this was about the baby. You said we needed the room. You lied. I did, he admitted, not looking away. I lied because I knew you'd side with him if you knew the truth. And because I didn't want to admit that Jeremy was the only one being responsible. Delia's chair creaked as she shifted, her eyes blinking fast. I'm sorry, Roger said again, but softer. To you. To Jeremy. To everyone. No one spoke. The only sound was the clink of Mort setting down his fork. Anything else? Mort asked. Roger swallowed. You already know about the back payments. I've agreed to repay Jeremy in full, in monthly installments. And I've started paying rent on the house. Effective last month. And Lorraine? Mort asked. I've cut her out of financial decisions. Permanently. That hung in the air for a long beat. Then Delia stood up. Her voice wobbled. Jeremy, I'm sorry too. I believed him. I thought what we were doing made sense. I thought it was just logistics, not, she paused, trying to catch her breath. Not manipulation. She looked straight at me, eyes red. I didn't know the house wasn't ours. I didn't know he was taking your money. I didn't know you were paying while we were living off Mort. Her voice cracked, and she sank back into her chair. I should have asked questions. I should have paid attention. I was so focused on preparing for the new baby that I just trusted him. Mort looked at her, then at me. Anything you want to say, Jeremy? He asked. I sat forward. My voice came out low but steady. I just wanted to feel like part of the family. I wasn't asking for anything else. Delia nodded quickly, tears on her cheeks now. I know, she whispered. And we made you feel like a burden. I nodded once. That was the truth. Nothing to add. Mort raised his glass, not for a toast, just a signal he was done talking. The era of secrets in this family is over, he said. No more lies. No more deals in the dark. He turned toward Ava. And that includes you too. You're old enough now to see what's real. I expect you to speak up when it counts. Ava nodded solemnly. She didn't smile. Mort looked back at me. You didn't deserve what happened, Jeremy. None of it. And I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner. I nodded again, throat tight. The rest of the meal was quiet. Not awkward, just heavy. Like everyone knew something had shifted. Something deep. The illusion was broken. But for once, it felt like the truth was finally on the table. And it was staying there. Delia picked the bakery. A little corner cafe with checkered tile floors, dusty chalkboard menus, and tiny mismatched tables that looked like they were pulled straight from an estate sale. I almost didn't go. But then she texted, "Just us. Please." I showed up 5 minutes early and still found her already seated, 2 cappuccinos steaming on the table, one with extra foam, mine, obviously. "Hey," I said, sliding into the chair across from her. She looked up, hair tied back, no makeup, eyes tired but open. "Hi." We sat in silence for a few seconds, both unsure of who was supposed to go first. She reached for her cup, hands trembling just a little. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began. "About how you just wanted to be part of the family. I keep replaying that in my head." I didn't interrupt. She exhaled slowly. "You're right. We made you feel like a tenant, like you were in the way. And the truth is, I didn't see it until the baby was born." I raised an eyebrow. "What changed?" She smiled faintly. "I was holding him at 3 in the morning, totally exhausted. And I thought, if he ever feels the way you did, I'd never forgive myself." That hit harder than I expected. "I should have asked questions," she said. "I should have noticed how uncomfortable you were, how isolated. But I trusted Roger to tell me the truth. That was my mistake." I stirred my drink, letting the silence hang for a moment. "You weren't the only one who trusted him." She nodded. "I know." We sat for a while, not talking, just sipping. The bakery buzzed with quiet laughter and low music, but it felt like we were in a bubble, set apart from everything else. "I don't expect us to be best friends," she said eventually. "And I don't expect you to forget what happened. But if we could start again, maybe not talk about the past all the time, just try." I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't look like someone playing a role. She looked human, flawed, honest. "Okay," I said. "We can try." She smiled, eyes glassy again. "Thank you." A couple weeks later, Ava texted asking if she could spend the weekend again. When I picked her up, she had a small duffel bag and a look in her eyes I recognized, something between hope and caution. We made spaghetti and played Mario Kart until almost midnight. Then, curled up on the couch with popcorn between us, she asked, "Would it be crazy if I wanted to stay here more?" I muted the TV. "Like how often?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Like, every weekend? Maybe even some school nights if it's okay. Things at home are tense." "Your mom and dad?" She nodded. "Mom's still upset with Dad. Grandpa Mort comes over more now. It's just a lot." I hesitated. "You want to move in?" She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, she said, "I sleep better here." I didn't say yes or no. I just told her we'd figure it out. The next day, I called Mort. "She wants to live here more," I said. "Full-time might be a stretch, but she's hinting." Mort didn't even pause. "If she needs stability, she has it. Let her come. Let her breathe." He started visiting more after that, sometimes with Jackie, sometimes solo. He'd drop off groceries, teach Ava how to balance a checkbook, even brought over a toolbox and helped her patch a loose cabinet in the kitchen. He didn't treat us like kids. He treated us like future adults. One Sunday, while Ava and I were sorting laundry, she asked, "Do you think Mom's serious about changing?" I looked over at her. "I think she's trying." Ava nodded. "She cried in the car last week. Said she should have protected you. That she wishes she'd stood up to Dad sooner." That stuck with me for days. Slowly, a rhythm formed. Not perfect, not traditional, but something real. Delia came over once to drop off Ava's sketchbook and ended up staying for coffee. We didn't talk about Roger or Lorraine. We just sat and shared stories about our worst teachers in high school. When she left, she hugged me again. Not out of obligation, out of something else. Respect, maybe. That night, Ava crawled into her blanket nest on the couch and whispered, "I like this version of our family better." And honestly, so did I. It was Mort who found the paperwork. He'd been going through old trust fund records for tax purposes, his words, and noticed some inconsistencies in Delia's financial files from years ago. Numbers that didn't add up. Transactions that weren't supposed to exist. One transfer, in particular, stood out. "I need you to come by," he told me over the phone, "and bring Delia." When we showed up at his townhouse, Jackie was already there, seated at the dining table with a stack of folders, and that look she got when she was trying not to explode. Mort didn't bother with pleasantries. He handed Delia a manila envelope and said, "Take a look." She skimmed through the papers, confused at first, then pale. This is my trust account." "Was your trust account," Jackie corrected, "until your parents started siphoning from it." Delia looked up, blinking fast. "What?" Mort's voice was even. "The withdrawals started when you were 17. Just small amounts at first. But by the time you turned 20, they drained over half of what your grandmother left you." Delia sank into a chair, silent. "They covered their tracks well," Mort said. "Used your social security number. Listed the expenses as educational support. But none of it went to school. None of it went to you." Delia sat back, stunned. I thought that money was gone because of market losses. My mother told me, she said it just wasn't performing well." "It performed just fine," Mort said. "Until it was stolen." The room was heavy with silence. Delia didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead, her voice flat. What do I do? Mort pushed another folder toward her. We've already contacted a lawyer. I'll cover everything. But the suit has to come from you. Delia opened the folder. Inside were the forms ready to file. I'll do it, she said. They don't get to lie to me and then judge how I raise my kids. Not anymore. Jackie nodded. About time. Later that night, Roger came over. He looked nervous, like someone who knew the ground was finally gone under his feet. He didn't bring excuses. No justifications. He sat on the edge of my couch and stared at the floor. I don't know if I deserve to say anything, he said. But I'm sorry. I waited. For everything, he added. The money. The lies. What I let happen to you. I didn't nod. Didn't reassure him. I let Lorraine dictate too much. I let pride get in the way of parenting. I thought I was doing what was best for the family. But really, I was doing what was easiest for me. I stared at him for a long moment. You said that already. I know, he said. And you don't owe me anything. I just wanted you to hear me say it without an audience. Without Mort. Without Delia. I swallowed hard. I appreciate that. He looked up. I was tired. You think you'll ever forgive me? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, I think that's something you'll have to earn. He nodded slowly. Fair. After he left, I didn't feel relief. Not really. But I did feel like something had shifted. He hadn't fixed anything. But at least he'd stopped pretending nothing was broken. That Sunday, Mort started a new tradition. He invited everyone. Me, Ava, Delia, even Roger, to his house for what he called family reset night. No big speeches. No hidden agendas. Just dinner, a whiteboard with a budget plan, and an open forum for anyone who wanted to talk. It was weird at first. But slowly, it became something real. Mort taught Ava how to track her savings. Taught me how to file quarterly taxes. Delia started showing up early to help cook. Roger came late most nights, but he always came. The biggest change? We talked. Really talked. About mistakes. About goals. About how to rebuild something honest. One night, after everyone left, Mort pulled me aside. You did good, he said. You walked through fire and didn't let it turn you into someone bitter. I'm still angry sometimes, I admit it. He smiled. Good. Anger reminds you where the lines are. But now, you're the one holding the pen. I looked around the room at the whiteboard, the empty plates, the notes Ava had scribbled on a napkin about her dream dorm setup. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because, finally, it felt like it could be. By September, my apartment didn't feel temporary anymore. The boxes were long gone. The fridge was covered in Ava's doodles and Mort's financial printouts, half of which I understood now. My drafting table sat in the corner by the window, covered in blueprints, pencils, and post-it reminders I actually followed. I'd picked up more hours at the firm. School was heavy, but manageable. I woke up early, made my own coffee, and didn't flinch when bills hit my inbox. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't easy. But it was mine. Ava still stayed over most weekends. We'd started a new thing Siblings Day every Thursday after school. No phones, no homework, no drama. Just food, music, and the kind of honest conversations we'd never had before. Sometimes we cooked together. Sometimes we went hiking. Once, we spent an entire evening sorting through old photos from when she was a toddler and I still lived at the house full-time. She stared at one picture for a long time, me pushing her on a plastic swing in the backyard. You were always there, she said quietly. Yeah, I said. Until I wasn't. She looked up. You're here now. Mort started showing up more too. Not just for dinner or check-ins. He started mentoring me, really mentoring me. He'd show up with books on personal finance, old project blueprints from his development days, or just 2 coffees and a story from the 70s about a tenant who tried to pay rent in avocados. I think that one was true. Then one day, he handed me a small manila envelope. Start our investment account, he said. You don't have to touch it. Just learn from it. I opened the envelope and blinked at the paperwork. My name. A small balance. Not life-changing, but something real. This is too much, I said, handing it back. No, he said firmly. It's the bare minimum of what your parents should have given you when you were 18. You're catching up. That night, I stayed up late journaling for the first time in years. I used to do it in high school, mostly sketches, random thoughts, quotes from architecture books I didn't understand. But now I wrote about family, about learning to trust myself, about building a life brick by brick, even when the foundation started out cracked. The lawsuit against Lorraine and Grant was moving forward. Delia was handling it with laser focus. She'd become someone I actually respected, a woman who'd been manipulated her whole life but decided to stop being quiet about it. She and I weren't best friends, but we talked. Really talked. Sometimes she'd send me updates about the case. Other times, it was just a text. Ava said your chili is better than mine. Not mad. Just disappointed. Roger stayed quiet. Still showing up to Mort's dinners. Still paying rent. Still rebuilding. I hadn't forgiven him fully. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I didn't need him to be someone else. I just needed him to stop lying. The biggest change? No one treated me like a guest anymore. Ava started calling my place home, without thinking. Mort introduced me to one of his old business partners as his sharpest grandson. Delia dropped off a basket of fresh towels and snacks one weekend and didn't hover, didn't ask for anything, didn't comment on the space. One Thursday during Siblings Day, Ava turned to me with a mouthful of spaghetti and said, "You think someday we'll actually call each other just siblings? Not Step." I shrugged. "I already do." She smiled like she just wants something. And that's what it felt like, really. Not a victory parade, not some grand ending, but small wins. Quiet repairs. A family finally built on truth instead of obligation. There was still mess, sure. The lawsuit was ongoing. Lorraine had started leaving angry voicemails that Mort always deleted before Delia could hear them. Roger was still awkward and Ava still got overwhelmed when people asked if she wanted to spend more time with her real family. But none of it knocked me down the way it used to. I had boundaries now. A home. A path. And every week, Mort gathered us. Me, Ava, Delia, even Roger, and we talked budgets and credit scores and what to do if your kid wants to open a cookie truck, Ava's latest idea. We laughed. We argued. We passed the salad twice and didn't let old wounds dictate the room. One night, after everyone left, Mort stood by the door and looked at me for a long time. "You're not the same kid who called me scared about losing his room," he said. "I know," I replied. "You're better." He clapped my shoulder. "And this time, no one's pushing you out." I closed the door behind him and turned back toward my apartment, our apartment, if Ava kept spending this much time here. Dishes in the sink, books on the couch, life in motion. I had no illusions that everything was perfect. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was moving forward,